Real Madrid, Kylian Mbappe and PSG. The transfer drama that these three parties has given us, I'd describe it as unique for lack of a better word. And I believe there is no transfer that can be compared to Kylian Mbappe's transfer saga. Real Madrid has been trying to sign him from the beginning of time, I guess. PSG have been trying to convince him of their project for years now. And for Mbappe, it would seem like he would want to play for Real Madrid every year. But while I upload this video, he is still a PSG player officially. So in this video, we'll obviously talk about the current transfer window, all the rumors surrounding this story, and my thoughts on where the player might end up playing by the end of the transfer window. But I also wanted to delve into the past a little and remind everyone of what all things have happened between these three parties. Not everything, but the major events. So fans can create a picture in their mind and understand how we have reached this point. Madrid has been Kylian Mbappe's fan for a long time. When he was 12 years old, he was invited to train with the under-13s. Zidane was the one accompanying him and he showed him the training facilities. Kylian also met the first team players, including his idol Cristiano Ronaldo. But eventually he decided to stay at France because he was just 12. And we can understand that because he was too young to move from France to Spain at that point. Now the year was 2017. This kid was playing exceptionally well for Monaco, helping them to win the French league and taking them to the semi-finals of the Champions League. And it was obvious to everyone that once the season is over, this kid will make a blockbuster move to a bigger club. The two clubs that were favored to sign him were Real Madrid and PSG. Now Jurgen Klopp also spoke to his entourage at that time, but it was clear that he will choose between PSG or Real Madrid. And believe me, looking from outside, it seemed like Real Madrid were the favorites to sign him. He eventually chose PSG. Now the reason might be because he was born in Paris and he wanted to represent the city he was born in, or maybe the squad at Real Madrid was heavily stacked up. Players like Cristiano, Bale and Benzema used to play in the positions which Mbappe might prefer, and maybe this would have been the reason for choosing PSG at that point. Anyways, he signed with the Parisian club. His first year was a loan spell, second year he signed permanently. Total cost of the deal was around 180 million euros and it was a 4-year deal which was supposed to end at 2022. Now during his time with PSG, he improved as a player, he won a World Cup and everyone could see his progress. During these times, there were some indirect interactions that used to happen between Real Madrid, Mbappe and PSG, which used to annoy people in PSG, especially the higher ups and people in their board. And we can say this was the beginning where relationship between PSG and Real Madrid became sour. And some of the reason for this was players or people in Madrid would give some interview in media saying that they really liked Mbappe and one day he might end up playing for Real Madrid. Or Kylian Mbappe in his interview saying something which would show that he liked Real Madrid and his inclinations towards the club, or not showing any interest whatsoever in renewing his contract with PSG. There were also statements from his previous vice president from Monaco where he mentioned that Madrid holds a special position in his heart and one day he would surely play for Los Blancos. So statements like these infuriated PSG, and PSG throughout these time they stayed firm. Although Neymar was ahead for PSG as their franchise player at the time, but they always stated that Mbappe is their player and he will be a major part of their project. And it looked like even if PSG would agree to sell Mbappe, they would not want to see him play for Real Madrid. Now the year was 2022, last year of Kylian Mbappe's contract. PSG were trying really hard to convince Mbappe to renew his contract with them, but Mbappe refused their offer every time. And at that point, it really looked like Mbappe has made up his mind that he don't want to continue with PSG. Either he wants to leave right now or next year when his contract ends. Now, with 1 year left on his contract, Real Madrid made an official bid to PSG to sign Mbappe. Initially, they made a bid of 160 million euros. They received no response. Then they improved their offer. Again, there was no response. Then there was a third bid of around 200 million euros. PSG weren't entertaining any bids from Real Madrid. Kylian Mbappe seemingly looked unhappy at that time. It looked like he wanted to leave PSG and play at the Spanish capital. Now today we see clubs from Saudi bidding some crazy amounts for players. But at that point, it was really unheard of that player has only 1 year left on his contract and their current club is not even listening to the huge offers they are getting from other clubs. But PSG looks like a club which is unfairly rich and it seems money doesn't bother them. So Mbappe ended up staying at PSG for another year. He wasn't very well received by the fans. He even got booed by the fans at home for not renewing his contract. But he was performing well, scoring goals and assists for PSG, and if PSG won the Champions League that year, all of this drama would have been worth it. But who they met in the round of 16 in the Champions League was ironically Real Madrid. To be honest, Kylian Mbappe was initially the best player of that tie. He scored the only goal in their home game and scored the first goal in the away game as well. PSG were clearly winning the tie thanks to Kylian Mbappe, and then Benzema stepped in at the Bernabeu at the 61st minute, scored a hat-trick and knocked PSG out of the competition. But getting back to the topic, things were going normal for the player and both the clubs until a news came in January. There was this report from Marca during the January transfer window. It said that Real Madrid has submitted a 50 million euro bid to sign Kylian Mbappe in January, and this was reported by Italian football agent Giovanni Brancini. but nothing came of that apart from some rumors and gossip. Of course, PSG was not going to accept an offer worth 50 million euros if they've already rejected an offer which was more than 200 million euros. Even if there were just 6 months left in his contract, it never felt like PSG would entertain something like this. However, to tell you about the rest of the season, Kylian Mbappe was doing really well for PSG. He was their top scorer for the 2021-22 campaign. PSG won the league, which was expected from them, but was eliminated from Champions League and Coupe de France, and in a way had a disappointing end of the season. But now the season has ended, and Mbappe was free to negotiate with any club he wants. And all the news that were coming from the Spanish capital were positive. It looked like finally Madrid will have the player they wanted for so long, and Mbappe will signing for the club he dreamt of playing since he was a child. Reports were coming which said that Madrid have done the negotiations and discussed contract with Kylian Mbappe's mother, and both parties have already had a verbal agreement. So we as viewers at that time, we felt like it's just a matter of time before we hear the official announcement from Madrid's side that they have signed the player. PSG on their part were trying to convince Mbappe to renew his contract, but it never looked like Mbappe is gonna accept their offer. It doesn't matter how much money they throw. After some time, Mbappe said that he has received offers from both the club and he's convinced of both the offers, and he'll announce his decision very soon and tell us which club he would be choosing. Even at that point, it felt like he's doing this to keep his PSG fans happy and just being diplomatic. But what happened next was really hard to digest for Madrid fans. He decided to renew his contract with PSG. To be honest, yes, it was a shock for everyone who watches football. Every football fan would want to see a player like Mbappe play in a competitive league and for a club who has an actual project. Reports came out about the new contract he received at PSG, and it was a very lucrative offer, and at that point it felt like the only thing that drove Mbappe to choose PSG was money. On that day, Kylian Mbappe lost a lot of credibility that football fans had for him, not to forget the 2 million followers he lost on Instagram as well. According to the New York Times article, Mbappe will earn about 250 million euros over the course of 3 seasons for which he has renewed his contract. The source also mentioned that PSG paid Mbappe about 125 million euros as a signing bonus, the biggest sum ever given as a signing bonus to a player in football history. Later on, he clarified things in the media. He said that money was not a driving factor. Why he chose PSG was because he was born in France. He's a Paris-born kid and he wanted to represent the Parisian club and stay in France. Apart from this, he said the sporting project PSG presented was also a major reason why he chose PSG. So it was hard for us to believe what he was saying, because if that were the case, why was he not accepting the renewal offer PSG provided him earlier? So me and a lot of other football fans thought that Mbappe did this for money. Also, there were some unreliable reports at that time which were not helping Mbappe, where it was mentioned that he would be made the sporting director of the club and he preferred Neymar to leave and bring in a new number 9. So it felt like PSG were trying everything to please him, and that creates a negative image for both the player and the club. Anyways, later on I came across these articles where it was mentioned that Emmanuel Macron, who is the French president, he called Kylian Mbappe multiple times to convince him to stay at France and play for PSG. Also, he went to Qatar. There he attended a meeting with senior officials from PSG and from the state. Now what happened in that meeting we would never know, but we can assume that they gave him an offer which he couldn't refuse, and it would appear that this was the meeting after which things changed. So basically what I'm trying to say is he was receiving a lot of pressure to stay in PSG. Now I'm not saying we should be sympathizing with him. My man was earning more money than GDP of an entire continent, but keeping money aside, we should wait to hear his side of the story before we start judging him. Allow me to remind you how people of Spain were taking this. So Spanish media, for obvious reasons, expressed their hostility. They used words like scandalous to describe what was happening. Javier Tebas, who is the La Liga president and is known for being really harsh and strict with finances of football clubs in Spain, he was clearly unhappy, and he asked questions like, how can PSG spend this much money in a player after showing a loss of around 224 million euros in 2020-21 campaign and a loss of more than 124 million euros in 2019-20 campaign. People in Real Madrid, the players and the staff, they were also sad. Players had their own way to express their disappointment. Won't get into all of them, but this is what Benzema posted. Florentino Perez, who's the Real Madrid president, and he's likely one of the most calm person I've seen in this industry, was caught on camera saying this unofficially to a fan about Mbappe. Fan asked him, after what has happened, don't sign Mbappe in future, and his response was, poor guy, he must be regretting his decision already. For the sake of it, I should also remind you about a news that came from El Chiringuito's Joseph Pedrerol. According to him, Mbappe sent this message to Perez to confirm that he's staying at PSG, where he mentioned that he has decided to stay in PSG and thanked for the opportunity he gave him to play for the club of his dreams and wished him all the best for the Champions League. And the response that Perez gave was, "I regret what has happened in the last few days. They have broken the illusion that you had since you were a child. I wish you the best." I know the response was cold, but what do you expect from Florentino? He's the one who created original Galacticos and was dealing with players like these. You see, Mbappe was doing a lot more to mend the broken bridges with people in Madrid. He was asked by an interviewer if he spoke with Benzema. He responded by saying, "I haven't yet because Benzema is a close friend, a call won't make it. And when he meets him in the international duty, that's when he's gonna explain his side of things." He was asked about Real Madrid in another press conference, and I'll explain the conversation briefly. He mentioned that he had a lot of respect for Real Madrid and Perez and basically said they did everything to make him happy. But in the end, I decided for myself, he said. He was then asked that it was highly publicized that playing for Madrid was his childhood dream. Then he responded by saying, "I'm really focused on this new contract and what happens in future, I don't know." Then he was asked if he had any message for Real Madrid's fans. He said, "I wanted to thank them because the fans have always accepted me as one of their own." He also said, "I understand their disappointment and hope they understand my decision to stay in my country." Yes, he's being diplomatic, but you can read between the lines. Now, if he was really convinced with PSG's project, or was the World Cup in Qatar the actual reason for him to stay, or if he was motivated by money, or he couldn't overcome the pressure he received from President Macron and people from Qatar, I don't think we'd be able to know that. But anyways, the transfer window ended and new season began, with Kylian Mbappe being the focal point and center for PSG's project, in a team that include players like Neymar, Messi, Marco Verratti, Ashraf Hakimi, Sergio Ramos. It was a strange season for PSG. Of course, the crazy Mbappe saga to begin with. Also, there were stories like fans booing Neymar and Messi at different points of the season. I'm not going to indulge into all those stories, but people had high expectations from PSG at the beginning of the season. But I think in the end, it was a disappointing season for the team, although they did finish first in the French league, but just by 1 point. And this in a way is disappointing when you take into consideration the financial disparity between PSG and other teams in the French league. And they were eliminated in round of 16 in both Coupe de France and Champions League by Marseille and Bayern Munich respectively. Talking about Kylian Mbappe, there were signs early in the season that player was unhappy, and the reason for this was the promises that were made to Kylian in the beginning of the season were not fulfilled. And one of those promises which was very important for Kylian was bringing in a striker. Mbappe made it clear that his preferred position was left wing, and because of the team structure he had to play as a striker, which he didn't prefer. Mbappe posted this story after their draw against Reims in Instagram with the caption "Pivot Gang" to take a dig at their coach and PSG. Although the story was deleted, later their coach Galtier came forward in the media, and although it was a little awkward, but he defended Mbappe. You can see his message, what he said in the screen. Later on, there was this tweet from Julien Lerons, who's believed to be close with Mbappe and his entourage. He mentioned that Mbappe wants to leave PSG as early as January. He also mentioned that he feels betrayed by the club and has had enough. Now, the part where he mentioned that he wants to leave in January, this was later dismissed by Mbappe, but you can see there was not rainbows and butterflies all around. There were tensions, and things weren't going as Mbappe would have imagined when he renewed his contract with PSG. The positive part of the season for him was the World Cup, where he helped France to reach the final of the competition, but not as positive as one would imagine because they lost the final to Messi's Argentina. But he had a great performance and scored a rare hat-trick in the World Cup final. But as mentioned earlier, after a disappointing season with the club, and after seeing his, I would not say enemy or nemesis, but a healthy rival or the player you'd compare Kylian Mbappe with, Erling Haaland. Mbappe saw Erling lifting the Champions League with Manchester City. Now, I won't say that this was the point when Mbappe decided that he won't be continuing with PSG, but City won the Champions League on 10th and on 12th June, the infamous letter was sent to PSG offices. An official letter where it was clearly mentioned that Mbappe won't exercise the option to renew with PSG post 2023-24 season. Inside PSG, they weren't expecting a letter of this kind from Mbappe, and as one would expect, the letter was not received very well. Allow me to briefly explain the situation here. So the contract renewal that happened during 2022 summer transfer window, there Mbappe did agree for a 3-year extension, but the final year of that deal was optional. So he was well within his rights, and if he wants, he can trigger the final year option and extend till 2025, or else leave the club for free at the end of 2024 season. Now, according to the reports, Mbappe had till July 30 31st to let the club know if he wants to exercise this option of extending his contract for the final year. And if he fails to communicate this by 31st, the club will automatically understand that he don't want to continue post 2024 season and would have dealt with the situation internally. And according to PSG, there was no need to send this letter. However, the letter was sent. Also, it got leaked in the media, and this infuriated higher ups in PSG and the people sitting in Qatar as well. Again, ironically, all of this happened after Madrid president Perez unofficially said to a fan that he would bring in Mbappe, but not this year, but the next year in 2024 summer transfer window. You see, there could be no relation with the letter Mbappe sent and what response Perez gave to a fan casually in the streets of Madrid, but the media was quick to establish a relation between both events. Mbappe on his part came forward and said, "Calm down, people. I just sent a letter to communicate my decision officially, and I don't understand why is that creating so much problem." Well, I think he forgot what has been happening between him, PSG and Madrid throughout all these transfer windows ever since he joined PSG. There was also a tweet by Kylian Mbappe on 13th June where he was responding to the claims made by Le Parisien. The French daily newspaper reported that Kylian Mbappe wants to play for Real Madrid this season, and Mbappe responded by a tweet saying that these are lies and he wants to stay at PSG for now. Maybe that's what he wants to do, or maybe he's just trying to cool the situation down. But the deed was done. People in PSG were angry, infuriated, and now the club wants Mbappe to leave this year. Well, that was not expected, right? Actually, PSG believes that Mbappe is the best player in the world right now, and if he leaves for free next year, that would obviously have its repercussions in PSG's finances. But also, it won't make PSG look good in terms of how they've handled the player. So normally in every transfer window, I'll expect this discussion where people would discuss about the rumors between Kylian Mbappe and Madrid, and in the end nothing happens. But this time around, it feels like situation is a little different from past years. Why? Is because people from PSG, especially Nasser Al Khelaifi, has never accepted that they are ready to sell Kylian Mbappe. And this time what happened was, there was a press conference on 5th of July to welcome the new PSG manager. On that press conference, Nasser Al Khelaifi made their position with regards to Kylian Mbappe very clear, which was, if Mbappe wants to stay, we also want him to stay, but he needs to sign a new contract. He also said if he doesn't want to renew his contract, the door is open for him. No one is bigger than the club, no player, and not even me, he said. Luis Enrique, the new PSG manager, on his first interview dodged all the questions related to Kylian Mbappe like a pro, so there's no point getting into it. But what President Al Khelaifi said regarding Mbappe, we haven't heard something like that from him in the past. In fact, previously, under situations like these, we are used to hearing something from people representing Real Madrid. But this time around, they are keeping so quiet that it feels like they have planned for it. Madrid's president was again asked by the fans if he would make any new signings after signing Joselu. His response was no more signings. At that point, it felt like that they would wait for another year to sign Mbappe for free, which is not a bad idea to be honest. And then of course he went and bought Arda Güler from Turkey. But that's a story for another time. Continuing with the Mbappe saga, the next important news that came was from Marca. This report said that Mbappe was supposed to receive 150 million in salaries and bonuses if he continued till 2024 with PSG, and he's not willing to let go of this amount. So if this were true, it would make the transfer situation a little complicated even if the clubs agree on a transfer fee. However, we got an update from Ramon Alvarez, who is a Spanish sports broadcaster, and according to him, PSG agrees to pay the part of the loyalty bonus which Mbappe was supposed to receive, and that would clear the path for all the parties involved. Now keep in mind, all of this was happening in the early days of July, around 3rd and 4th. Now at that point, we got an update that people from PSG will have a meeting with Kylian Mbappe and his mother in the coming days to understand their intentions and plan the next steps for PSG accordingly. So needless to say, we were waiting for the next update, next bomb to drop in the story, and what we got was this. Kylian Mbappe was spotted partying in a glamorous celebrity all-white party in Miami hosted by American billionaire Michael Rubin. And I here thought he was worried. Anyways, man deserves some fun time in their off-season as well. The next thing Mbappe did was to fly down to his father's hometown in Cameroon. His intention was to visit the country and the people and check on his charity projects in the state. While he was doing that, Kylian was asked by the journalists there on the possibility of leaving PSG this summer. Kylian cleverly dodged all the bullets. The response that the journalists received was he is in Cameroon at the moment, and the most important thing for him is to enjoy his time here with the people of Cameroon. Now I understand it was not the most exciting update from the story, but what came next was actually a bomb. So around 9 July, an explosive interview came out published by French Football, where the French forward had some questionable statements regarding PSG, their players, and the mentality of the club as whole. I've shared the link of this article below so you can read it for yourself, but I'll also discuss the major highlights from this interview here. Mbappe said PSG is a divisive club. He was asked something on the lines of, whether he's bothered by the rumors. And his response was, and I quote, "I think playing in PSG doesn't help much because it's a divisive team, divisive club. Of course, it attracts rumors, but it doesn't bother me," he said. He was also asked what should PSG do in order to win the Champions League, and I'm paraphrasing here. His response was like, he doesn't have the answer for that. The ones they should be asking this question are people in the PSG management, the ones who plan the project. He was also asked if people downplay his performances, and again I'm paraphrasing the response, which is, he accepted that people sometimes make his performances look unimportant, and he said he don't blame the people for that. It's because people have seen him growing up in France. Also, he has been scoring so many goals for years now, so it has become normal for people. When I read the statements from this interview, I was surprised. And I thought to myself, why would someone do this when he knows he has already created a lot of controversies because of his recent actions? So why should he be inviting more trouble? But soon I got to know, thanks to Julien Laurens, that this interview which France Football published was not a recent interview. In fact, this interview was done during the last international break in June, when he got the award for Best French Player of the Season, before he sent the infamous letter and all the controversy started. Anyways, you should not be demeaning your team or put your teammates under the bus for any reason, especially for your gains. Having said that, I also think this interview releasing at this point, I don't think it was part of Mbappe's plan. Rather, it was a trick by France Football, because the timing at which they released this would not only create some controversies but also give them maximum clicks. So these statements from Mbappe was obviously not well received in PSG. People from PSG, they came forward and expressed that this behavior from Mbappe is unacceptable. In fact, 6 players from PSG, including 2 new signings, raised their voice and complained about this to their president and higher-ups in PSG. Their president Nasser Al Khelaifi, responding to Mbappe's statements, said that if this is how he feels, why don't he leave already? And if this was not enough, PSG's former president Leonardo had some fuming words for Mbappe. This is what he said to L'Equipe, and I quote, "For the good of PSG, it's time for Mbappe to leave, no matter what." He also said PSG existed before Mbappe and will continue to exist without him. Well, not the kindest of words, but remembering the statements he used to give during his time, I was expecting more from Leonardo, to be honest. Also a reminder that Leonardo and Mbappe did not share a healthy relation during Leonardo's time at PSG, and he was sacked right after Mbappe's contract was renewed in 2022. So maybe he had more than one reason to be angry on Mbappe. Talking about some recent news, although we get multiple reports from multiple sources regarding Kylian Mbappe every day, but we'll try to filter it down to the important ones, and in this section we'll provide all the major recent news related to this topic. So PSG sources have told The Athletic that if Kylian Mbappe decides to run down his contract, it will cause some financial trouble in PSG, and they will be forced to sell some of their players and some staff as well. After this, there were some explosive reports for the next couple of days, and the latest reports say that Kylian Mbappe will not be included in the PSG squad for the pre-season tour of Japan, reported by multiple sources. Fabrizio Romano, who is one of the most trustable football journalists, he says that Kylian Mbappe is up for sale now, and PSG believe that he has already agreed terms with Real Madrid to sign as a free agent next year, and because of which PSG feels betrayed. They have given up on his renewal and would be open to sell him immediately. He also said Mbappe is demoted from PSG's first team training and will now train with youth players, the loanees and the players listed for transfer. This was also reported by Le Parisien. Reports say that clubs in Saudi and English Premier League are actively evaluating the situation, and according to the latest reports, also confirmed by Fabrizio Romano, Al Hilal has submitted a world record bid of 300 million to PSG, and the financial offer that Al Hilal is willing to give to Kylian Mbappe is 700 million euros for 1 year. These are truly some astronomical figures and can be a major turning point in the story. And if reports are to be trusted, PSG are already willing to accept this bid. In fact, I can imagine Kylian Mbappe accepting this offer from Al Hilal, play in Saudi for 1 year, then he can probably join Real Madrid next year for free. This bid from Al Hilal can be suitable for all 3 parties involved. PSG will get an amount which is more than what they expected to get for Kylian Mbappe this year. Mbappe, who according to PSG will be kept on bench for the whole year if he doesn't choose to renew, will get a chance to play at Saudi, which is obviously better than sitting on the bench at PSG for the whole year. And Real Madrid on their part can supposedly get Mbappe for free next year. So it can be a win-win situation for all 3 parties. But I don't think that this deal will go through. And this is pure speculation from me. And why I say this is because I don't see Mbappe playing anywhere apart from Europe as of now. It is well documented that he would be willing to play for Real Madrid, and according to reports, Mbappe already have an agreement with Madrid to join them for free next year. And I completely understand that Al Hilal are offering enormous wages to Mbappe, and it is possible that he can be convinced. But all I'm saying is I don't see him playing in Saudi as of now. He can obviously return to Europe next year, but unless Mbappe comes and clarifies the situation and says otherwise, I still see him playing in Europe this year or maybe sitting on the bench at PSG. So keeping Saudi Arabia out of the equation, there were reports which said EPL clubs like Chelsea and Tottenham would also be interested in Mbappe, but I don't think any of the Premier League clubs are serious about signing Mbappe as of yet. There was another update by L'Equipe which said that Barcelona have also entered the race to sign Mbappe, and a meeting is also scheduled between PSG and Barcelona, and Barca, because of their financial situation, would consider including players in the operation. But I still believe Mbappe's preferred destination would be Madrid. If we talk about Real Madrid, they have been silent throughout, but they are still waiting to get an idea about what price can PSG accept for Mbappe, based on which they will plan their future steps. So this is where we stand now. Mbappe doesn't want to renew his contract. Also, he has not shown any interest to move to any other club this year. And although people, especially in France, have been complaining a lot about Mbappe, I still believe that whatever Mbappe is doing right now, I'd say it's well within his rights and no one can force him to renew his contract or join any club that he doesn't want. But PSG's plan doesn't align with Mbappe's. Although earlier they wanted him to renew his contract, but it looks like dialogue has been broken between both parties, and PSG would rather prefer to sell Mbappe this summer and get an adequate transfer fee. Now, by the look of it, it would seem like Mbappe will not go to any other club apart from Real Madrid, but he only knows what he wants to do, and I won't be surprised if he starts listening to the massive offers he has been receiving. However, Real Madrid has not shown any signs of emergency, and by the look of it, it would seem like Real Madrid are convinced that Mbappe will join them for free next year, and I think they would prefer that rather than spending a huge amount of money this year. So viewers, all the major news related to this topic has been covered already, so if you prefer, you can end this video now. But as I've told before, I've followed Kylian Mbappe's story for a long time. So for the next couple of minutes, I'll be sharing how I personally feel and my thoughts and perspective about all three parties involved, and then we will end the video. Starting with Real Madrid's point of view, what I feel is, after Benzema has left the club, there is actually a void, and if Mbappe doesn't join the club this summer, it will be clear for everyone to see. Just like how after Cristiano left in 2019, Real had a disappointing season. So if Mbappe joins, as a fan I will be pleased, but there will be two major points of concern here. First of which is the fees. Reports say that overall package to buy Mbappe from PSG and provide him with some add-ons, and the salary would go around 500 million euros. And I believe if you can get the player for free next year, spending 500 million euros now is not advisable. But in that case, Real can be repeating the mistake they did in the previous transfer saga, where Mbappe spent the final year with PSG and chose to renew in the end. My second and the most important point of concern from Real Madrid's perspective is, if he chooses to join, what attitude, what mindset is he coming in with? Is he willing to come as a team player and play for the badge, or he wants to join the club as a star player with all the tantrums? And if we consider all the things he did recently, it's not looking good. Now from PSG's perspective. Now, if I'm a PSG fan, I strongly believe that PSG should move away from their policy which is just based on signing star players. They have dominated the French league for a long time now, and for some reason it feels money is the only reason for that. Not their project, not the tactical genius of their coach, not a team that can play as a unit or anything else, but they can buy the best players available in the market. A field in which the other French teams simply cannot compete with PSG. See, if we are talking about money, teams like City and Newcastle also have a lot of money, but they follow a project. And if we are talking about dominating a league, Bayern Munich also falls in the same category as PSG, but then again, they're not backed by a state like Qatar. You can think of any team to compare with PSG, but no other team have this policy where they just bring the star players or hang on to their stars to fix everything. And I agree that there are many teams who spend big on buying talented players now, but their policy, unlike PSG's, is based on a project, which I think is attractive in footballing terms. And I believe now is the perfect time for PSG to change their image. With Luis Enrique in, they have a really strong personality in their dressing room, who is a no bullshit manager with a decent team. I think they should sell Kylian Mbappe, move away from this policy of just buying star players, and buy players who fits the style of football Luis Enrique wants to play, and start fresh. Now I'll end with my thoughts on Kylian Mbappe. See, I'll start by saying this, and it's not something that I read somewhere, I'm just sharing my thoughts. I believe that Mbappe's decision to send the letter and to leave PSG this year or maybe the next year, I don't think it was part of Mbappe's plan initially, until he saw Benzema leave Real Madrid to join the league in Saudi. And I think because of that Benzema void, Madrid can be more attractive to Mbappe. Now talking about what is happening, you see a lot has been said about the player in recent days. and it's Mbappe who has created a lot of problem for himself. Now many would say that he should have done this, done that, should have avoided sending the letter, or don't give that interview, or many other things. And I agree that a lot of controversies could have been avoided. But while I was doing research for this video, I developed this feeling that not everything in his story is decided by him. Now I understand that in his position, he should be advised by a lot of people who are capable enough to advise him. And based on that, he takes a final decision. And maybe, just maybe, everything that happened was not down to him alone. And I for one strongly believe that he should be leaving PSG to take charge of his career and take it to the next level. And if he stays in PSG, he will definitely score some goals as he has been doing throughout his career. But he will be hated by a section of fans, some people in the boardroom and the dressing room as well. And because of this baggage, he won't be able to bring out the best of him. So Kylian, if you're watching this, man, it's time to leave PSG. Come to Real. Or if you really want, go to Liverpool. But leave PSG. And I know that I'm no one to say this, but for some time, concentrate on your game, on your performance, not on the image rights, not on the basketball, not on interviews or any other bullshit drama. Just on your game and show the world what you're really capable of. And that will be the end of the video, guys. For every viewer who've stayed till the end, thanks a lot, guys. Tumhara tahe dil se shukriya. If you think this was interesting, then a like would mean a lot. And if you can subscribe, that would mean more than that. And if you can turn on the notification bell, well, that will be asking too much. Anyways, guys, let me know your views on the whole situation. Also, I wanted to know if this longer format videos will be preferred, or should I cut down on some details on the future videos. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you on the next video.